Happy spring, rail fans. As I was looking through my camera, I realized I have a whole lot of content over the last month from all over the state of Oregon. All sorts of operations, railroads, locals, mainline, steam. So I did something I haven't done, and I compiled a highlight reel. Some of these clips come from previously posted videos, but some, for one reason or another, have just been hanging out in my database. All, however, were filmed between mid-March to mid-April. I hope you enjoy. And we start off with a southbound IBRLC leaving Harrisburg. At Divide, Oregon, you see one of my favorite shots from the Central Oregon and Pacific Medford job chase. Train speed here was higher than other locations on the line, but the rocking cars sure make it look like a Milwaukee Road train from the late 1970s. Here's the Portland and Western's American turn leaving Harrisburg for Halsey. Here's a southbound Union Pacific manifest in Harrisburg, Oregon. Not sure what the train symbol is, but it's likely a PD RV or an HK RV. As with most things in life, the low-hanging fruit is what you get the most of. And for a rail fan, that's your hometown railroad. In my hometown of Harrisburg, I feel lucky to have two railroads just blocks away. The Albany and Eastern has a steam train that you can ride out of Lebanon towards Sweet Home, the Santiam Express. It was a great trip. You can ride this train any weekend. Here we find the American Turn again, trundling down 4th Street in Harrisburg, en route to switch the feed mill south of town. The Coast Starlight Amtrak 14 crossing the Willamette River between Junction City and Harrisburg. And at the Wilco elevator in Harrisburg, Union Pacific local called the Swain Turn prepares to swap 2 loaded hoppers for 2 empty ones. This switcher is actually a yard job out of Eugene. It services a few customers between Eugene and Harrisburg, and it tends to be a nocturnal operation. This heavy 100-car grain train was exchanged from the Burlington Northern Santa Fe to the Union Pacific up in Portland at the Lake Yard. With all the foreign power that could be found up front on these grain trains, I made an effort to capture more of them over the last month. Once again, we find the Central Oregon and Pacific Medford job approaching Cottage Grove. Here it's crossing the coast fork of the Willamette River. Amtrak Cascades blasts through LaBiche and Salem.
Amtrak highball and roll by at LaBiche, over.
Okay, thanks for the roll. Amtrak out.
All the way down in Klamath Falls now, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe prepares to enter the Union Pacific line, heading north with a military train bound for Washington. From here, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe shares the Union Pacific Cascade subdivision up to the junction in Chemult, which will take them onto the Oregon trunk, leading them through Bend up to Wishram through the Deschutes River Canyon. The West Sider, a Portland and Western local out of Albany, heads north in McMinnville. The SD40-2, a rare beast on Oregon short lines. This is only one of two that P&W rosters that were built as SD40-2s. The majority of these cars are headed to the large Cascade Steel Mill here in McMinnville. West Sider, just north of McMinnville, crosses a giant trestle over the Yamhill River as it prepares to shove into the Cascade Steel Mill. In Salem, this Union Pacific empty grain train is on the Brooklyn subdivision headed toward Portland. From there, it'll go up to Eastport, Idaho, to exchange these cars to the Canadian Pacific. In the yard, you can see a Salem local preparing a train to depart. Now preparing to cross the old lift bridge over the Willamette River on the Oregon Electric, This Portland and Western American turn is returning to Eugene Light Power. Amtrak 14, the Coast Starlight slams northward at track speed. At the same location here in Tangent, Oregon, on the Brooklyn subdivision, we have a loaded 100-car grain train off the Canadian Pacific, headed towards the Cascades. This train is en route to Goshen Junction, California. This concludes the Pacific Rail Productions Best Moments of this month. But with the best weather still ahead of us, stay tuned to PRP because there's a lot more coming down the track.